Hello and welcome to Choose FI. Today on the show, we have Sonny Burns back after 6+ years. When he last was on in episode 139, he was 88.92% of the way to FI. And what an interesting guy. His episode was one that really stuck with me because he had a little bit of everything. And he was just so optimized in terms of his FI journey with real estate. He flipped cars. I think he flipped over 17 different cars. He just had this wealth of knowledge and just a lot of these little hacks that were incredibly interesting, including this SMART scholarship from the Department of Defense that actually paid him $25,000 a year to go to college, plus those years for free. And it was just an incredible story. And he followed up with me earlier this year saying he reached FI and he left his W-2 job 7 months ago after working for 13 years as a mechanical engineer with the DoD. And he gave up really what were the golden handcuffs of a $147,000 a year job. But now his family of 7 are living the stay-at-home dream that they always planned. I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. It has a ton of actionable knowledge, a ton of fun things. I'm going to leave it at that. And with that, welcome to Choose FI. Sonny, welcome back to Choose FI. It's good to see you.
Hey, it's so good to be here. 6 years it's been.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, neither of us could believe how long it was. So episode 139, and then 139R, which we used to do these roundups every Friday for a couple of years. So anybody who wants to go back and listen to Sonny's first 2 episodes, because he actually featured on the roundup also, these episodes were amazing. I listened to them in the last couple of days, and they are just chock full of just actionable detail. He just has an incredible story, and we're going to touch on a bunch of those things from the old days, but really we're going to pick up from today. So Sonny, in 2019, mid-2019, I think you were, as you said, you're an engineer, so you're a mechanical engineer. You were 88.92% of the way to FI, which I thought was amazing and hilarious, all rolled into one. And your dream at that point, you said, was to have a stay-at-home family. And I wanted to fast forward to, we're recording this in November of 2025. Where are you now?
Yeah. So as soon as I graduated college, I became a mechanical engineer for the Department of Defense. So for 13 years, I was working there. And just 8 months ago, I left my W-2. I was making $147,000. So it was pretty hard to say goodbye.
Yeah.
It was a pretty easy, cushy government job as a federal employee. But, that was the dream. My wife 10 years ago when we had our oldest child left her job. And the dream was to follow suit and be a stay-at-home family. We have 5 kids now, 5 kids who she was homeschooling alone. So it became a lot. So, I could see her struggling. And, this opportunity came along with the whole Elon Musk Doge thing. And they were like, hey, if you leave, we're going to give you 6 months of paid leave. And I'm like, hey, this is a great launching point. I've been talking about financial independence, retiring early forever. Let's leap. I'm 35 years old now. And so I took that leap, no more W-2 for the last 8 months. And, now I'm not being paid, just living the financial independence, retire early lifestyle. And we're that, we met that goal of being a stay-at-home family.
Oh my goodness. Okay. There's 7 things in there that I want to talk about already. So first, congrats. That's incredible. So a family of 7.
Yes. Family of 7. Still fitting a Toyota Sienna minivan.
All right, nice. What's the age range of the kids? How old is the youngest?
So youngest is about to turn 2 next week. So we have 2 years old, 3, 5, 8, and 10.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a range. And you are homeschooling? You and your wife are homeschooling?
Yes. So my wife for the last 10 years has primarily been doing the brunt of it. But now I'm on board. I've been teaching my little girl to read the last couple of months. And we're homeschooling.
Are there any type, I know in this day and age with AI, and I've heard of the Alpha School and things like that, I don't imagine that's what you're part of. But are there new resources that are applicable that, I know you're up on this kind of stuff. So that's why I want to ask you specifically, anything you guys have come across?
Yeah, no, there's so many. We're part of 2 homeschool co-ops. So we do a forest school on every Thursday. And then actually, I just got back from a homeschool co-op every Friday. We do another more kind of academic co-op. I teach a Toastmasters club. My wife does pre-K. But yeah, they do academics there. And then the forest school one, we're kind of more learning about nature, survival skills, and things like that, and just hanging out in the woods.
Okay.
Yeah, so my wife was actually homeschooled K through 12. She did go to college. She became a teacher. and all that. So we're like second generation homeschools. I went to public school, but we can kind of count second generation. And we were mostly doing paper curriculum because that's what she knew. But we've, with 5 kids, we kind of needed something to officiate and guide us along the way. So we kind of moved towards like Chromebooks and digital now with most of the older kids. But with the younger ones, we're still trying to do paper curriculum, get their writing skills advanced and things like that.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, I just wasn't sure, like in this day and age of Khan Academy and all these
Yes,
different things that are
we
available.
do
Like,
Academy for math.
nice. Okay, I tried. Yeah, I had my girls do that in their elementary school years for a little bit, and then it was really enjoyable. And it's neat to be able to have your kids go at their own pace too. Like if they're advanced, they can go as far and as fast as they want, and if not, they can go as slow as they want. I just thought that was Khan Academy is wonderful for anybody interested in learning about just about anything. So it's KHAN Khan Academy, and yeah, it's something really really special. So you said second generation homeschool, which is interesting. Now, second generation FI is something that's a term that Jonathan loved for years and years and years, right? And frankly, I haven't mentioned that all that often. And when you said that, it jogged my memory. How do you think about financial independence? Before we get back to your story and go from there, how do you think about financial independence for your kids? I know something you talked about on the first episode way back when was having Roth IRAs for your kids and having earned income and et cetera, et cetera. But how and do you roll financial education into the homeschooling?
Right. So actually, all 5 of our kids have Roth IRAs, their own Roth IRAs, which we started at the age of 0 for most of them. I have a YouTube channel. We're not very big, just 12,000 subscribers, but they're featured in all our YouTube channels. So that's how I get them income to roll into their Roth IRAs because, we get advertisements and we get paid through the YouTube channel. So they're my models in my YouTube channel. That's how I pay them. So they all have Roth IRAs. I don't tell them about the Roth IRA just because I don't want them to know, oh, I got thousands of dollars, blah, blah, blah. I had this hunger growing up just because we were poor. So I had this hunger to succeed and make my way in my own life. I had to pay for my own college. We talked about that in 139. I won't rehash it. But I think I'm going to, tell my kids kind of the same thing. Like if they want to go to college, they're going to have to pay for it themselves. And so, I've been very intentional about teaching my kids finances from the get-go. We do like the Bank of Dad method. I'm sure you've heard of that, where we give our kids 1% interest at the end of every month for their savings. So like my 10-year-old, he's got 600 saves, so he gets 1% of that, $6 at the end of every month. So if he can get his savings up higher, my little kids, they start out with like a baseline of like a $2. So I guess it's more like an allowance. I don't really love allowance, but I like this interest method. But yeah, the baseline is like $2. And the little ones, they're still making those mistakes of every time we go to a soccer game, they're going to the snack stand and buying all the fruit roll-ups they can and things like that. But I think, they understand. Like, I think most kids that walk around, they don't even know what a piece of candy costs. My kids at least understand that because they're making the mistakes of buying whatever they want whenever they want it. But, my older ones, they've grown out of that. And, he just sold a Pokemon card that he traded for. Anyway, he sold it on eBay for like $107. So he's all excited telling everybody, I just made $107. And yeah, so, he's gotten the concept of, what things are worth and the value of things. And we always talk about money with our kids all the time.
Yeah, this is something that I definitely am dealing with both my girls. My kids are a bit older than yours. I have a almost 14-year-old and a 17-year-old. So it's interesting because I think as the kids get older, and you've already deduced this with the age range of 2 to 10, the lessons are different and how much you want them involved in it actually expands. And it's interesting because we were just talking about this with the girls and saying, hey, maybe it's time for, like, they each have a quote unquote credit card, but it's just an authorized user card on one of my accounts. And it's all commingled. So they don't really see it. And it comes out of my bank account. It doesn't come out of theirs. So I'm actually contemplating either, I'm not sure that I can open cards in their names at this point. Maybe my older one's probably pretty close. But anyway, like opening up a card and having it very specifically, that is that child's card and it's linked to their bank accounts and the auto pay comes out of their bank account. Again, I have to deal with all the details and whether you can do this or not, in that it's in my name and the bank account's in their name, yada, yada, yada. I'm sure people are yelling at me right now, but nevertheless, like for them to be able to deal with this and actually set up the auto pay and see it come out every month. And I love your Bank of Dad, which is a really cool thing. And we did start with allowance. And I think there's something to that. We don't do it as allowance for like, oh, you have to take out the garbage and you get $1. Not, it's just, it was used under the guise of financial education. I think at the end of the day, that's what we want to do as parents is we want to educate our children and make them successful adults. So yeah, I guess you and I differ a little bit on that, but it's probably at the fundamental essence, it's the same thing. But talk to me about the Bank of Dad though, because I think this is actually something that a lot of people can take away from this. You're ultimately incentivizing behavior, which is frankly another thing we do as humans and also as parents, right? Is like you incentivize certain behavior. And obviously by giving interest based on the amount they have, you are incentivizing more savings. But I'm curious, how do you pass those lessons along?
Yeah, so I don't know. We just do it with all the kids, and they all, get that 1% at the end of every month. And I think, the kids always ask me for it. Like once it's in near the end of the month, is it the first yet? Is it the first yet? And they're always wanting for that to happen because, yeah, like I said, the two little ones, the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old, they're always buying snacks and buying these little knickknacks all the time. But the older ones, they're much better savers at this point because they have like goals. Like, I don't know, my older one likes drones and things. So he wants to buy a nice drone. So I think he's learned that lesson through the years of not just spending every single penny he earns right away, but if he can save it, then he can, buy those greater things that are worthwhile.
That's very cool. I like that a lot. So yeah, for people out there, it doesn't just have to be a 1%. You can incentivize any type of behavior, which is actually really interesting, right? Like we talk about 401k matches, and that's something you should always get at your job. Well, you can also do that with your kids. If you can incentivize a match on a certain type of investing or a certain type of savings, right? So, hey, you just got $100 for a gift. Yeah, you could spend it all. Like in my case, my kids would go to Lululemon or something like that. Yeah, you could spend it all. Or any percent of it you save, I'll match 25% of it, something like that. I'm just making this up off the top of my head, of course, but you could do whatever type of match or whatever type of incentivizing you want. And I mean, Sonny, I think it's a really cool part of like a holistic second generation FI concept because they don't learn this stuff other than at your homeschool. They don't learn this stuff at school. We didn't learn any of this at school. We learned it along the way, or maybe if we're lucky from our parents in some way. But I think those of us in the FI community can be a whole lot more intentional.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go back to Doge, which maybe this was one of the few good things that came out of a Doge. So you got 6 months of severance?
Yeah, 6 months of full salary, full health benefits, and yeah, that was it. I didn't have to show up to work. I didn't have to do anything and just got paid leave. So it was kind of like our runway where we were like, hey, my spreadsheet says right now I'm 122% financially independent. We're making more passive income than, our expenses by 122%. But is that real? And so we were like, okay, let's see if we can save that entire paycheck for those 6 months. And I think it was coming around to like $80,000 or something. So that was the goal. The next 6 months, let's save 80K and see if that happens. And we did. And it was awesome.
Okay. I think for a lot of people, there's one more year syndrome, right? That's something we've dealt with for a long time. It's easy to stay. Now, you are an optimized person. Just knowing what I know about you over the years, you're optimized. But nevertheless, like you said, you're making $147,000 in a pretty cushy government job. Like, that can't be easy to give up, right?
So hard.
And that's the thing. Like, but that could turn into one more year syndrome, into 5 more years, into 20 more years. I don't know if there was a pension looming. That's another factor for some people. Maybe you.
Yeah, no. For every year I stayed, I get an additional percent towards my pension. So right now, after 13 years of working there, I get 13% of my highest 3 salaries once I'm 59 and a half.
Okay. And every subsequent year, you would have gotten another percent?
Right. So if I was there 20 years, it would have been 20%. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So there was an opportunity cost. But the nice thing is that's not quite as bad as I would have feared. Because for some people, it's you hit that X number of years. It's 20 years. You get nothing prior, or then you get the full pension at 20. Okay. So that's a little mitigating factor for you. So that's not quite as bad.
There was something like if I hit my minimum retirement age, which would have been 47, just because I started so early, 47, then I would have had full health benefits right when I retired at 47. So now I don't have any of those health benefits.
Okay.
So that was something, but I'm like 47, that's 12 years from now. I am not holding out that long. So that wasn't really a factor for me.
I gotcha. Okay. So the spreadsheet said you were 122% FI.
Yeah.
You're a smart guy. You and your wife are really optimized, but nevertheless, you were still working.
Yes.
Right. Even though you had said, my dream is to have a stay-at-home family. What was it really just the 6 months? Was it like you were looking for an excuse? Talk me through that, because I think this is the point that can really help people?
Right. No, I think, so we do a lot of rental real estate. We have 11 doors in the New York City area. So, we started that journey 10 years ago and kind of bought houses. And we were just doing a lot of renovations. So out of those 11 units, we've replaced 10 kitchens, 10 bathrooms. So there's a lot of costs involved there. So we were constantly reinvesting money. My paycheck was going into those properties to like make them better. So we never really felt that cash heavy. We had a lot of like HELOC debt and things like that. Our net worth now, we're worth $3 million net worth wise. So we're doing really good as, a 35-year-old person with a family of five. But, we were never had so much cash because all the cash would go into these renovations and things. So I guess because we didn't have like a nest egg or a cash nest egg anyway, we never felt like, we have room to just say goodbye to the job just because, we were borrowing from HELOCs and things like that to pay for these renovations and things. So I feel like very soon we would have felt like, okay, we have a surplus of cash. We're done with renovating. Maybe we can think about retiring early, but that never came. And then once this Doge thing came, it was just like a light bulb, like, whoa. Like before that, I was not thinking. I was thinking like 2 years, but I always said 2 years. Even since you were out since 6 years ago, I was like, oh, in 2 years I'm gonna retire.
No,
In 2 years I'm gonna retire, and it was always like that. So no, there definitely was a catalyst for making this action.
Okay, love it. And that's the thing, right? Like we can't beat ourselves up about it. I know my catalyst, I've mentioned this so many times on the podcast, my catalyst was this tiny little pathetic thing where it was in essence, the workday previously started at 8:30 a.m. And then all of a sudden, the powers that be said, oh no, work starts at 8 a.m. now. And it was just like,
30 minutes.
I'm like, well, screw that. This is ridiculous. I'm not giving you 2.5 hours of my life every week for a year.
Right.
It made no sense. So anyway, but sometimes that little exogenous shock can make all the difference in the world. It can just wake you up. So, okay, $3 million net worth, but I'm assuming a significant majority of that is in the real estate properties in the 11 doors. I know you have your numbers documented, so we can really dive into this.
Yeah.
Let's go through the net worth in terms of broad buckets.
Yeah, so a majority is real estate just because how things have appreciated over the years. So we have $3.8 million worth of real estate. That's what it's appraised at, but what we owe on it is about 1.3 million. So in total, 2.4 million of what we have after, debts. So in terms of Roth IRAs, we have 355,000, 401ks, we have 326,000, and then cash is right around 100,000 right now.
Okay. So, right, but roughly 2.4 million of the slightly over 3 million in net worth is in equity in the properties.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what we're living off of right now. We're actually not utilizing the 4% rule at all. All we're living off of is the rental income from 3 properties, 11 units. It's 2 4-families and 1 3-family.
Okay. Gotcha. It's so interesting, right? Because everything is a decision. Because in theory, you could sell those properties for roughly 2.4 million, probably less some commissions, et cetera. But even just saying 2.4 million, and then you could take the 4% on that.
Yes.
Right. And you're at a little over 100 grand right there.
Yep.
But it looks like from your spreadsheets that I've seen on your website and what you send me, those 11 doors, that 2.4 million is producing a net profit of about $123,000 approximately. So you're doing a little bit better, certainly, than what you would in selling. It's funny because I think a lot of people, and I'd love your opinion on this, Sonny. So there are people who are looking for this bizarre purity test when it comes to like FI. Like FI only works if you only have assets in the stock market and you sell exactly 4% of them and you earn nothing else and you do nothing else and you basically sit and stare at a wall. Like, I think it's, as you can tell from the sarcasm dripping from my voice, I think it's utterly preposterous. But in essence, you took that money that would have been invested and you just bought some rental real estate with it, and it kicks off income, which is essentially the same. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I'd love your thoughts on like, are you not doing FI according to the book because 80% of your net worth is in rental real estate?
Yeah. No, like you, I think whatever way you can buy your freedom, buy it. I have a lot of friends who, do the 4% rule, but a lot of them have stress, when there's a down market or something, or they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have left so early because now my 4% is, only 100,000 rather than the 130,000 it was when I retired or whatever. And I just feel like with rental real estate, there's so much control. I've vetted every single one of my tenants that I have in those 11 units. I know who they are. A lot of my former tenants have gone on to buy houses and things. So they're good people. But I have so much control over this rental income, and I know it's going to be there. And I just like that about it. Just like the cash flow and just, yeah, and I feel like when you withdraw from your 401k and your IRA, it kind of feels like you're taken away from something that could be growing. But the rental income is a lot more easy mentally, I think, because it's just going to come in every month, when tenants pay their rent. It's not like you're stealing away from your nest egg or you're stealing away from this big pot of money that's growing at 8% a year or whatever. So I think mentally it just feels like, oh yeah, this rent's coming in. Of course, I could just be funneling it into like a brokerage account or an IRA or something. But mentally, it's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to be getting $123,000 a year from the rental income. We can live off that. It just feels good to me.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's to each their own, right? Because I think what we've tried to educate people here on so much is the 4% rule works. It really, really does. Even though it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't feel as good.
Mm-hmm.
Because frankly, most of us have been savers for many, many years. Just by virtue of being we've had to save for a decade, 2 decades, whatever it may be. And it's hard to flip that switch. But flip that switch, you have to sometimes, right? And it's just, if that was part of your plan, okay, well, I need to sell assets and that's fine. Obviously, yeah, if you have money rolling in, if that had been part of your plan all along, like with rental real estate, or frankly, buying a business is another way of doing it. It's the exact same thing. It's you're just buying assets, right? Like whether you're buying stocks or you're buying a business or you're buying real estate, you are literally buying assets that are ultimately going to kick off the money you need to live in FI. With stocks, you need to sell some of them.
Yep.
It's just how it works. So it's all part and parcel. But I think it's what makes you sleep well at night. Because frankly, like for me, having 11 properties, like you've done all the work. You know this stuff inside and out. You've been doing this for a decade. Like, but for me, the stress of owning the properties would be overwhelming. But isn't that so cool? It's like everyone, you need to deeply understand yourself. And I love that there are probably 50% of the people are listening to me and saying, oh yeah, I couldn't imagine doing real estate. Like I'll just take my stock market. And then the other 50% are saying like, oh yeah, it's Sunny. Obviously, who would want to do that? Like this is a no-brainer,
Yeah. Yeah, but the amount of, emergency calls I've had over the last 10 years being a landlord, it's stressful sometimes. I'm working a full-time job and I locked myself out. Oh, the toilet's clogged again. Oh, I found a rat in my apartment. It's been a journey, and my wife and I are so grateful with the freedom we've bought now. But over those 10 years, it was kind of like working a second job a lot of the time. But, we've made those properties now optimized so well that, I know when those water heaters are going to go. I know which ones we replaced. I know what we did with that kitchen and how it's going to last. And, it just works really well right now. But it was a journey to get there.
I get that. Do you have, I know with all your love of spreadsheets, like, do you have like detailed maintenance spreadsheets for every single one? I'm thinking about like the real estate investor out there who's like, Sonny, help me out here. How do you do this?
No, you say that and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I should probably start tallying this. I do have some like general things like, hey, this apartment we painted with this sheen and this color just so that we can do touch-ups here and there. And I have like a lot of things like that recorded and stuff, but I just have in my head like, oh yeah, I can go into my invoices and just be like, oh yeah, we did replace that water heater 12 years ago or whatever. But yeah, I think categorically I should probably just have a spreadsheet with the maintenance logs. That's a good idea.
That would be cool. So it sounds like you have been the property manager for much of this time. Has that changed or are you still property manager?
Well, so I spent 12 months in Japan. I took my whole family. There was a big opportunity through my work through the Department of Defense to work as almost like an ambassador engineer and work for the Japanese Ministry of Defense for a year. And I was like, hey, I'll volunteer to go. So we did that. So for a whole entire year, we were away in a foreign land and we still had to manage these properties. So that's from 2022 to 2023. Awesome experience. And, the DoD paid for my housing there. I rented out my house for the entire 12 months here. So I was making so much money financially by doing that exchange. But during that time, I was a 13-hour time difference away. I was how many thousand miles away. And so I needed to hire like a property manager, someone boots on the ground that could take care of things. And so I actually ended up talking to my landscaper and he ended up, I put him on group text with every single one of my tenants. And he was a kind of a handyman too. So he started I would wake up a lot of mornings in Japan and the tenant would have been like, hey, this issue happened. And he was like, I'll be right over. I could see the text message when I woke
Nice.
up and be like, hey, it was already taken care of. Awesome. Good job, Danny. Thank you. And it worked out really well. So, yeah, we were doing that while there. And he still helps out with the property now, although now I'm a little more hands on for the bigger things.
Okay. Because, I'm curious. So, if you're making a net profit of, approximately 123K, and of course, that's going to go up and down a little bit at the margins, but how much are your family's annual expenses? Like, what are you trying to cover as far as, so not the expenses on the houses? Because I know last time you gave us all that granular detail. Like, in essence, it's like, okay, here's what our life costs, X, all the properties. Like,
Right. I'd put us right around 100K. That's about our entire expenses, if you include our single family house too.
Gotcha. Okay. So all in, your life costs 100 grand and you're making just from the rental about 123.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a savings rate, and then also that whatever it was, about 800,000, I think, was off the top of my head, of the other savings you have in various vehicles. That's just sitting there compounding, which is wonderful. You're hopefully never going to have to touch that, or not have to touch that for many, many decades, which is great.
Yep.
So I guess, and this is my own bias, of course, but like, is there a thought to just going totally hands off with it and hiring a property manager, even if it's 10%? Like, you have some wiggle room in there, right? You've got about 20% of wiggle room. Is that a thought?
Well, it is, but you say 10%. When I was thinking about going to Japan, I started interviewing these property managers, and I got people, around the 7-8% range in our North Jersey rents, which is a lot higher near New York City. So they're okay with 7-8%, but that's of gross rent.
Yeah, I misspoke. I realized that as you were
Right.
going into that, I realized it's on the gross rent, not on the net profit,
So
obviously.
our gross rent's like 274,000.
Yeah, so it'd be a
it's a
big deal.
lot more than our net. It's more than double our net. And so it would be a huge chunk. And not only that, I just didn't like how the property managers were incentivized. Like, they were like, okay, so when we have an issue, the toilet's clogged, we're going to call a plumber, and that plumber is going to charge $1,000 or whatever to replace, to unclog it. And we're going to charge 15% on top of whatever they charge just for making that call. I'm just like, so why don't you just pick the most expensive one so you get the highest 15%? It just didn't seem incentivized correctly. And I don't know. I just, we've worked really hard to place really good tenants, to take really good care of them. A lot of them became friends. And just, I guess I'm a little resistant to change that up and introduce a new factor that could mess it all up. And I like the concept of that, small and mighty landlord. We haven't bought anything since 2020. We're not like empire builders. We just want enough for our financial independence to buy our freedom. And I think these 11 units, it's very manageable for me. I probably put in on average, I think, like 5 to 10 hours a month on these properties.
Oh, wow.
Most of the regular maintenance is taken care of, all the landscaping. I have a landscaping guy. I know all the contractors now. I know all the plumbers. I know all the electricians. So I can give them that call, save that 15%, know what's going on, know it's being handled in a way that the tenants are happy with, and keep that connection with them. So I don't think I'm pivoting away from full property management just because I don't want to give up that 8% of gross. And also just, I like being in the loop.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and I guess it would be about 20 some odd thousand, low 20s
It would
in
be a
terms of,
lot.
I mean, that's not nothing to stroke a check for $22,000. So that makes a ton of sense. I'm curious, you referenced small and mighty real estate. So that's Chad Carson, our great friend, has a book called The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor. And I think this is fantastic. I think this is, for me, this is like the FI mentality for real estate investing. It's finding that enough point, and then trying to optimize your rentals as much as you can to make them as easy as possible. Like, Chad talks about his buy box, and basically he's always taking his most troublesome properties and trying to sell them, and then only looking to buy properties that are similar in his buy box, quote unquote, that are similar to his top performing properties. And it's just this continual process. Eventually you get to the point where you have A++ properties that are just not bothering. I'm making that up, but like, that just simply aren't bothering you, and it's just smooth. I'm curious, do you guys plan? I think you said you had about $1.3 million in mortgage. Do you plan on paying these off? Like, is this a long-term play?
So, no, we do not plan to pay off the mortgages. I mean, if we have like a crazy surplus of cash, maybe we will, but they're all under 3.5% interest rates. So it just doesn't seem to make sense to pay off them early when I can just go to a high yield savings account and make more interest on that. So that's the only reason. If interest rates start shrinking, then sure, we'll start considering paying off those debts. But at 3.5% and lower, like one of ours is 2.8%. It's just like, I don't see the reason for paying them off early.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And obviously they're kicking off enough income to cover your life. So
Yeah.
there's no massive need to change. But man, that will be real nice when they're paid off. You have this
so nice
empire of real estate. Pretty good.
Yeah, that'll be another $60,000 bump. 60,000 is just going to mortgages.
Interesting. I like it. All right. So, Sonny, I know you are not limited to just rental real estate and house hacks and things like that. You have a whole bunch of side hustles. One that you started since we last talked was a Turo rental car business. So I know you told us last time about your car flipping days, which I think were when you were younger. But I was interested to hear that there's another car related side hustle.
Yeah, so Turo is kind of like almost Airbnb for cars. So we bought a minivan when we had our third child. And so I had this 2009 Toyota Yaris with roll up windows, and it was just kind of sitting there. And I'm like, I always want to optimize, I always want to use my liabilities to make them into assets. And so I started renting it out on Turo, which is like a car exchange service, like I said, Airbnb for cars. And so I was only renting it for $35 a day. I was in Garfield, New Jersey, middle of nowhere, New Jersey. And I'm like, is this really going to make money? But, the first year I earned $6,400. That was in 2020. And then the next year I earned another $5,500 in 2021.
From one car, this is?
From one car, that I bought for $5,000. So I'm like earning more than I bought it for year after year. And then unfortunately, someone did total the car. No one got hurt. They hit black ice, hit a guardrail, and it was totaled. But, Turo paid me a $4,000 settlement on a $5,000 car I bought. So in total, I think I made like $18,000 on this car that I bought for $5,000, and I could still use when I really needed it. But yeah, it was an awesome experience. And now my little brother does it. My other brother is thinking about doing it. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you're going to have to pass along some actionable tips here because I suspect there are people who their antenna are raised here. How viable is this for everyday people? How much effort is it? How much like schlepping, like delivering the car to people? Like how much trouble is it?
Yeah, so I just parked the car right in front of our house on the street. I had a lockbox right on my house and with a code, and I'd give the code to the renter, and they'd just go to, like, it was right under the mailbox. They'd go to it, they'd put in the code, grab the keys, and then just rent out the car. Honestly, it's very easy, and I like that, it's not a huge, used cars are more expensive now, and your car has to be under 13 years old. That's the limit that Turo gives. And I think there's a mileage, maybe like 120,000 has to be below that, something like that. But yeah, a lot of people don't have the capital to maybe buy a rental property, but they have the capital to buy a car. So that's why, my little brother is like, how do I make some passive income? I'm like, hey, try Turo. So he's been doing it for like a year and a half now. It's gone really well. I just added a second car to his fleet of rental cars. Some people, this is their livelihood. I know someone in Colorado with 28 Jeeps, and that's how he makes his family income. That's all he does is rent out his 28 Jeeps. And yeah, you have some issues sometimes with the lower end cars, $35 a day rental. Sometimes they'd come back and it smelled like weed. So I bought an ozone generator. You learn little tricks to get rid of smells and things. So there's some issues, but more likely than not, they were good people, and they would leave it back clean. Maybe I'd have to take my hand car vacuum and do a little 20-minute cleaning. I'm honestly thinking about doing it again. It was a little annoying with one car. I think with a fleet, where I am, being a multimillionaire now, it's just not worth it so much. But I think it would be a great thing for my son. Like maybe I can go in with him as a partnership, and he can clean the vehicle and do a quick 20-minute turnaround each time. And I think it's a great investment and a passive income stream or semi-passive income stream for, people who want to build kind of like a smaller rental kind of business like this without going into properties.
And it's funny, and I swear to you and to everybody listening, I'm not making this up. In the last 48 hours, I had this thought experiment. I was undertaking this thought experiment of like, what would it look like to invest in something that could generate cash flow that like maybe people aren't doing because they don't have assets? Like you said, they're not multimillionaires, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas I have some assets. Are there things I'm even thinking like, I don't know, landscaping equipment or like heavy duty, like tree stump grinders or something, like literally just as a thought experiment. And Turo was one of the ones that crossed my mind. But again, like you, I wouldn't want to do just one car because that's a lot of
It
hassle.
is.
Whereas, like, what if you had 30 or 50 cars, $55,000 cars? Okay, well, that's not an insignificant amount of money. But if you have
Well, you just
50,
grow it iteratively,
yeah, right. But like, what would it look like to hire someone to run that for you? What would it look like? Where do you park them? Like, these are the questions that I'm again at the very beginning of this journey in terms of thinking about it. And frankly, am I going to actually do this? I doubt it. But it's fun to think about.
It
And I
is.
think Turo is something that. So let's talk about your brother.
Yeah.
What is holding? Is it cash? Is it assets to like that's holding him back? Like, is he planning on doing 5, 10, 20 cars?
I think that's the plan. I mean, he's only 26, so he's a lot younger than me. So yeah, he just didn't have a lot of capital. So he had enough capital to do one. He's been doing it for a year. He finally got enough capital to buy a second one off that business, really. And so I think he likes it. So I think he's just going to keep going for it and keep growing that fleet and getting that passive income to keep going up and up and up.
Okay. All right. I like this. So yeah, my mind is spinning because right, is it viable like in this day and age to find a $5,000 car? Yeah, maybe, maybe not, for most people. But if you look hard enough, and again, it's about learning. And I think, Sonny, that's what's interesting about you to me is that like it seems like you approach these problems and you just kind of knock them down, right? Like,
Mhm.
in my mind, you've been buying and selling cars for your whole adult lifetime, and maybe even when you were like teenager, frankly. And like, when I said, "Can you find a $5,000 car?" You just nodded and said, basically, "Yeah, of course." And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if you could, yada yada yada, right?" But I suspect you can. And could you turn that into, like you said, $6,400 in one year, $5,500 another, at just $35 a day? Like, that's not bad, right? That's more than 100% return in
Yeah.
one year.
I mean, someone had it up for 80 days. They took an 80-day trip. So, you can make a decent amount of money.
Okay, I like it. All right, Sonny. So switching gears to yet another one of your, I don't know if we'll call this a side hustle, but it probably qualifies. So you have a family of 7. I know now you have a lot of time, and travel is a massive aspect of your current and future life, but also your not too distant past life. Also, you mentioned the year-long trip to Japan. You mentioned renting out your single family home, the house that you guys live in, but that suggests to me you haven't sold it since, but you're still traveling for intermediate and or long periods of time. Talk to us about, what does this cost? How do you afford it? Like, what does travel look like for a 5 family of 7 that has a house in a high cost of living New Jersey area?
Yeah. So we love to travel. We've always been traveling. I'm making it a goal, by spring next year to have gone to 46 states with my wife. We're at like 25 right now, but we're planning this massive 60-day long road trip all across the country, taking all the kids with us. And so it's going to be exciting. But yeah, so we got all this freedom, for the last 8 months, haven't been working. So, we homeschool our kids. So no school obligations. We do have some obligations of co-op, but we can get covered in things like that. And so, we have all this time. But with all this time, we want to travel a lot. But if we travel a lot, then our expenses are no longer what they were. And how can we afford to travel all this time? So, I'm thinking. And so I was like, I got the idea to start Airbnb-ing our primary residence when we go on travel. And I call it our perpetual travel machine because we can actually make more money Airbnb-ing our house than we spend on traveling. And so we first started this in August of this past year. We went on a 10-day bicycling adventure across the Erie Canal from Buffalo, New York to Albany, 360 miles. We took all
Okay.
the kids with us. My oldest 10-year-old pedaled the whole thing. My wife had an e-bike and she could take like 3 kids with her. And I had 1 kid on the back of my bike. And we just, over 10 days, we did like about 36 miles a day. We biked from town to town to town. I forget how much we spent. I think we spent, we were staying in hotels every night or motels. So we spent about like $1,200 on the trip. So a decent amount. But we Airbnb'd our house the entire 10 days we were gone. And we made like $2,300 of the 10 days we Airbnb'd it. So we made more money Airbnb'ing our house than that trip. And then for the entire month of August, we made $5,800 Airbnb'ing our house. And so my wife went to Austria, took her aging kind of parents. That was kind of a dream of hers. She had the little baby too. I had 4 kids with me. We went camping, nonstop camping. We spent more hours outside in the month of August than inside, if you include being in a tent. So I took my kids down the shore. We went camping on the beach. I took them to Lake George. We had a whole island to ourselves. The state of New York has island camping on Lake George. We had a whole island to ourselves for $28 a night. We could camp on it. We paddled there 2 miles. So we made bank just Airbnb our house and having a great time outdoors with our family. And so, this month, later on in 2 weeks, I'm doing an Ironman in Mexico. I'm bringing my whole family with me. We're going to spend 2.5 weeks there. So we're going to Airbnb the house. Someone's going to be enjoying our house on Thanksgiving. They're going to have we're going to put in the leaves in. They're going to have 10 people here enjoying Thanksgiving at our lake house here that we live in. And then in January, we're going 3 weeks to Brazil. I've never been to South America. I'm like, hey, let's do it. So we're going to Brazil. Oh, I have a cool hack about that I could talk about.
Ooh,
But
nice.
yeah, so we're going to Brazil. Oh, Mexico and Brazil. We did all with miles. So I'm super excited about that because it's hard with a family of 7 to do
Oh,
everything
yeah.
with miles. It's so many miles. But we did Mexico and Brazil with miles. So I'm excited about that. And then next year in the spring, we're planning a 60-day road trip across the country. And we'll be Airbnb our house the whole time. So we make more money than we spend traveling. And so I'm so excited about this perpetual travel machine that we've created.
That's unreal. Is there something special about your house? Like, what are you near New York City? Like, are you basically? I think you said you're not.
Yeah, we're an
You're
hour
kind of in the
out
middle
from
of
New York
nowhere.
City. So we're in Morris County, New Jersey. It's not special. We're not in the boondocks. We're like in the suburbs. There's really nothing special. We're in a small, tiny town called Mine Hill, New Jersey. Even New Jerseyans have never heard about it. But our house, we kind of picked like this. It was only $360,000 in New Jersey. That's pretty low. We bought that in
Yeah.
2020. But it backed up to woods, and then there's a lake back there. I have a kayak rack with 6 kayaks. I'm an avid biker. I take my kids on biking adventures. We have 25 bikes in the garage that people can use. I put a full-size trampoline in our basement. I could put a link to our Airbnb if you want. It's pretty cool, our house. We have a blow-up hot tub. I like to do ice plunges in the lake and then go into the hot tub. I have pictures of that in our Airbnb thing. I don't know if guests will be doing that. But we have a pool in the summer people can use. It's just a cool house. Nothing really special. And people just seem to like to rent it. And I'm honestly surprised how quickly things get booked up through Airbnb. I think there's just a lot of people who travel and want a place that can accommodate like a larger family. And we encourage, we say right on it, this is our personal residence. We don't want trouble with our neighbors. So we encourage families to stay. We say no to parties, no parties allowed. And so far, our guests have been awesome. So I think we have 7 stays at this point, and everyone has left the place like spotless. I'm honestly shocked. And I think it's because it's primarily families that have stayed, and they've left it so clean. It's amazing. Like, I'm just shocked, honestly.
That's incredible. Yeah, I'm thinking about all the limiting beliefs that I would have or people would have. And yeah, it would
Right.
be, how could I rent out my own place? People are
Right.
going to wreck it, whatever. Or frankly, why is anybody going to rent my house in
Right.
random suburban Richmond? Even though I know objectively I live in a great spot, like it's a nice place, but like my limiting belief is, oh, come on, who's really going to rent your house in Richmond, Virginia? But I mean, it's shocking to hear how quickly you've rented this.
Yeah, I mean, people travel everywhere. So we used to, for 2.5 years, 3 years, we had in our 4-family house, we had a separate room. We couldn't really rent out as a 5th unit. So we had it as like a bedroom Airbnb. And we made it Japanese themed to kind of detract people, so people were sleeping on the floor on tatami mats. We had a projector with anime DVDs. We had a Japanese style bidet toilet. And we were a little close to New York City then, like 30 minutes out. So still not that close, but there was a funeral house in town. So people would come for funerals. People would just come to visit family that lived in town, and they didn't have a bedroom for them. And they didn't want to stay at a hotel 20 minutes away. So they want to stay in town. There's always reasons people are staying wherever they're staying. So I think it's just, it's easier than people think.
Yeah. And I love just all the little hacks just embedded in what you say, like even just the Lake George thing. So first off, for anybody who's ever been to Lake George, it's absolutely beautiful. It's a nice place in New York State, but just renting a little island. What'd you say? $28, $38 something?
$28 a night. It's insane. We had a whole island to ourselves. Water's crystal clear. It's the clearest. I think it's the cleanest lake in all of the US, which is amazing because it's spring fed. And I think it's a top rated for water quality. It's a top rated lake in all of the US.
Ah,
And we were just snorkeling, seeing fish, rope swings. We had such a good time.
that's a great place in the summer. That's for damn sure. So, okay. Miles and points for a family of 7. Most people think that's impossible. How'd you do it?
Honestly, I don't know how we do it. I think, so for the last like 7 years, I feel like we've kept everything domestic, like always road trips with the car, just because 7 tickets is so expensive on a plane. But we've still been opening credit cards and stuff. So we just had a lot of miles. I think like the United Airlines card, we had like 300,000 United miles. I can pull up those numbers if you want about how much we spent. I think we got good deals, so I can tell what we spent on Mexico. But we just had a lot of miles over the years for United and American, and that's what we booked Brazil and Mexico with.
I think this might be the key is with your flexibility.
Right.
It wasn't like, hey, we need to
We're not going
travel
spring
on
break.
July
Yeah.
4th and come back on July 19th.
Mhm.
It's, hey, we want to travel. It wasn't even necessarily Brazil and Mexico.
Right. So I was looking at the calendar and being like, okay, yeah, so I'll go like 5 days before my Ironman event just because it was the cheapest miles. And then, we'll stay. I think we did end up staying like 4 days longer than I was just thinking, oh, we'll be there 2 weeks. So I'm like, okay, let's just make it 2.5 weeks just because it's cheaper on the miles.
Yeah. Right. And that's the cool thing about flexibility. I think this is just one of the myriad of ways that we can benefit from being and being flexible with our time, right? Like
Yep.
I was listening to another old episode and it was something about like, it might have even been the roundup actually that you were on was when do most people go to the grocery store? Well, they go on Saturday or Sunday or Costco, Saturday or Sunday at 3 o'clock when everyone else is there and you have to stand in line at Costco for an hour, right? Whereas like when you're you can go whenever the heck you want.
Yeah.
I get there at 10 a.m. when it opens. I'm the first person online because I run through the store and I don't wait for 1 second.
We took our whole family to Six Flags yesterday, a random Thursday in the middle of November, and we took them to Six Flags, so they knew there was going to be no lines. And that's another hack. So we went to Lake George, and they have a Six Flags at Lake George, which is $20 cheaper season passes than New Jersey. So we ended up getting $60 season passes for this year and next year at Six Flags. And anyway, we used them yesterday.
Oh, and so my older daughter is a roller coaster enthusiast. So she actually went to that Six Flags by Lake George this summer.
It was
and
good.
we've been to the one Great Adventure is obviously the great one in New Jersey. And yeah, it's amazing now with the merger of Cedar Fair and Six Flags. Now I think there are 40 odd parks that are all reciprocal with
Dorney
those.
Park too. We just went to Dorney Park.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, we got King's Dominion down here, which is great. So that's another one that's pretty good. But yeah, that's a great talk about a nice hack or way to spend money is like it's under $100 usually or thereabouts for an annual pass.
Yeah,
depending on what park you're getting it at. And you can just go an unlimited number of times. It's really pretty wild.
It was great. It was only $60. Yeah, I was amazed. Like only $60 for a season pass for this year and next year. And then the parking is $40 by itself. So with the season pass, it's included. I'm like, man, we would have paid $40 for parking. So anyway, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's very good. So, right. So going back to the miles just real quick is, with some flexibility, I always tell people like that is the key in terms of succeeding at miles and points is, can I be flexible? That is the first rule of succeeding at miles and points. It just is. And if you can be flexible, you can go almost anywhere you want and you can go for nearly free. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. So for anybody who's new to this, we have a ton of resources at choosify.com/travel. And also we have our credit cards list at choosify.com/cards. And you can basically find all the information there. I'm going to be doing a bunch of episodes on this in 2026. So stay tuned because really travel rewards is a way for most of us to take one or two close to free vacations, at least every single year if we're smart about it. And Sonny, you know that adds up to real dollars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, you said, I don't want to let this slide. You said there was some hack for Brazil.
Oh, yeah. So Brazil, for Americans, we were going to have to pay over $1,000 in visa fees to go to Brazil as Americans for my family of 7. So I think it just adds up to it's like $150 a person or whatever. But so we are dual citizens. Actually, my little daughter is a triple citizen, Japan, Austria, and America. So I'm also a dual citizen. So I can use my Japanese passport to go into Brazil and not pay any visa. And my kids are all Austrian citizens, so they can go into Brazil, not pay any visa. So we save ourselves $1,000 by using our alternate passports by going into Brazil. I mean, I don't know how applicable that is in your audience, but I thought it was cool.
Well, maybe the passport thing. Are there any interesting stories on getting the Austrian and Japanese passports?
It's just like my mother-in-law, she's Austrian, so she could pass that down to my wife, who can then pass that down to our kids.
Okay.
Japanese is similar, but you have to do it within 3 months of birth for the Japanese citizenship, which I didn't know for my older 4 kids, so I could only get it for my 5th child.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So yeah, I've looked into this a little bit and it really does vary country by country. So I signed up for ancestry.com just to see if I knew I had some Eastern European ancestors. So this is still like in the cards for me potentially because it
Okay.
looks like I might have, I think Poland might be a slightly easier one and Italy, but you need to be able to like definitively prove, like, I think it's up
Wow.
to great grandparents, but it depends on the country. So nobody quote me on any of this or Sunny, obviously. But the key is having multiple passports. It can be really, really valuable, especially in a FI life, not just in this case where you get this nice little reciprocal benefit to get some visa fees for free. But really, there are a lot of rules, let's say in the EU, where you have to, I think it's what, 90 days and you have to leave
Yep.
the country. Whereas if you have an EU passport, that doesn't apply. So, like, that can be a massive, massive bonus if you happen to have grandparents, great grandparents that you can definitively prove came from some European countries. Like, that might be something to really look into. So I suspect, Sonny, that's going to help. There's going to be a good handful of people at minimum. I'm going to set our sights conservatively here and say that that's going to help. Just this one random little one-off comment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I like it. So, okay, the 60-day road trip next year. Are you guys RVing it? Are you staying in
Nope.
hotels? What are you doing?
So we're so cheap. I just can't bring myself to buying an RV that gets 5 miles per gallon and go 6,000 miles around the country. So, we're just sticking with that Toyota Sienna minivan, 2011, just hit 200,000 miles, going strong still. I did just buy on Facebook Marketplace a roof rack, so we'll have a little more leg room than we're normally accustomed to in our trips. But yeah, we are just going. We're going to be staying with friends and family. My brother just renting a house in Colorado. He just moved there. We're going to visit him for a week. I have family in California. We'll stay there. But we're also just going to go to a lot of national parks and do tent camping. We love tent
Ah,
camping. We do backpacking all the time too. But yeah, we're going to stay at Glacier National Park for a while. Go to Yellowstone. Go to Yosemite. Go to Mount Rushmore, and yeah, just go to a lot of these cool places. I'm so excited because yeah, I haven't been to that part, a lot of those parts of those northwestern states, Utah, Idaho, Montana. I'm just excited. My wife's always talking about Montana, seeing horses there, and just hear so much cool things about a lot of the national parks there. And just seeing a lot of friends that we haven't seen in a while. So we'll visit them. We told them, hey, we have all that camping gear. Just give us some floor space and we're happy.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, that's really the cool part about FI is A, that flexibility, but B, you're doing this with your family, right? Like, you set this out as a goal. My dream is to have a stay-at-home family,
Yeah.
and you succeeded. You and your wife succeeded, right? This clearly was a team, and you guys are there now. I love it. So where do you go from here? So you have rental income that covers all your expenses. You have this. You're getting more and more equity, obviously, every year. That just even without Express paying down your mortgages, you you did it.
Yeah.
But what is it like? I know your mind is not going to just
I
stop
know.
there.
I know. Yeah, so world schooling the kids, that's a big thing. We're starting to roll up, taking baby steps towards that. That's a huge thing. And honestly, I thought when I was going to leave, when I left the federal government, that I'd have all this time, and 40 hours a week now I could dedicate towards something else. But honestly, like having 5 kids takes a lot of energy. I'm soccer coach. I'm helping kids learn to read. I'm doing math flashcards with all the kids. I'm in it with my wife. And I get a lot of fulfillment from that. But I thought I'd still have a lot of surplus. I'm also training for an Ironman, which takes a lot of time. That's 2.4 miles swim, 112-mile bike, 26-mile run. It's a lot of time. My goal is to do it in under 13 hours. So there's a lot of time dedicated to training for that. So I think once that's over, November 23rd, I'll have a little more time again, because I had a lot of personal projects that I was thinking I was going to, have that YouTube channel I'm trying to grow. I made a patent 2 years ago that I'm trying to I'm making prototypes for the product right now, but it's just so slow going. My goal was to have that launched by the time my paycheck ended in September, and I'm not there yet. So there's all these goals, but I'm just trying to have the perspective that really the goal was stay at home family, spend the time with the family, and we have. We've had so much fun this summer, just going on all these trips, and just being a stay-at-home family. That's the goal, and that's been my perspective. And honestly, it's a good life. This FI life is awesome. And yeah, if it's just baby steps I can take, then I'm gonna have to be happy with that, and I am.
I love that, man. It's a good life, this FI life. That's a pretty good quote. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that feels like the energetic end of the podcast here, Sonny. It's just really cool. I'm glad we reconnected. I'm glad you came back on. And I'm just really happy for you and your wife and your kids. Sounds like you're just rock and rolling and just living that FI life. And that means that might mean one of anything, right? Like one of so many different things that you can do, which is, hey, an Ironman. Hey, I'm teaching math. Hey, we're going to go on this trip. Hey, we're going to learn new things. Like it can be anything. And that's the beautiful part of Phi is you're a young guy.
Yeah.
You're, I think, 35 plus or minus.
35.
And,
Yep.
your wife, I assume, is roughly the same. And you guys have another 60 years
Hmm.
and you can do whatever you want. And I think that is the goal of what we're doing here, right? Like this Phi journey is the one reliable way for middle class people to get wealthy. It just is. And it's a life of intentionality. And
Hmm.
it usually takes somewhere between 1 and 2 decades to get there. And you did it and you rocked it. And here you are reaping the benefits of it. It's amazing. And I wish you a big congrats and good luck ahead of time for the Ironman. That's no joke.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
All right, Sonny. So you have a website that I don't know that you necessarily post to very often, but it's got a ton of resources, especially for people who are looking. There's this amazing scholarship that Sonny talked about in the first episode 139. It's called the
Yep.
Smart Scholarship. He has a whole article on that. He's got like just a whole bunch of good stuff here. So while it isn't updated that often, it's still a great resource. So it's famvestor.com, FAMVESTOR.com. And Sonny, you have a similarly named YouTube channel, is that right?
Yeah. YouTube channel's also called Famvestor. So yeah, check it
Awesome.
out. I'm trying to be a little more proactive on that.
Okay, very cool. So yeah, if anybody wants to follow along with what his family's up to, definitely check it out. Sonny Burns, thank you, my friend.
Hey, it was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for having me.